Take it away, Laura.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. We are all really excited to be working with you tonight and really to be able to give you a little bit of information and a lot of insights into the NPQLBC with best practice. So we are now one whole year into the new iteration of the NPQs, which are essentially part of this golden thread that you can see on the screen, which shows a really progressive professional development series for teachers and leaders in schools. And just from this slide, you'll see that there are a really growing number of NPQs from the previous iteration. There are 6 programs shown here, and they replaced the 4 in the previous iteration of the NPQs. And in developing the sort of the width of that pathway, the old NPQML, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, has been replaced by the NPQLT, which is for leading teaching, the NPQLTD, leading teacher development, and the one that you're here to hear about tonight, which is the NPQLBC, leading behaviour and culture. And the reason for that breadth, that width of pathway, is because it was recognised by the DfE that we needed to provide more choice, more opportunity, more sense of direction and specialism for middle and some aspiring senior leaders within schools in order to become better leaders of their particular specialism within school. Each of the specialist programmes I've just named, including the LBC, is 12 months long. And following that 12 months taught programme, there is an assessment, which is called the Summative Assessment Task, the SAT. What's really important to know is that if you are familiar with the previous iteration of the NPQML, that used to use a school improvement project. There is no longer a project. Now you are assessed solely on your engagement and this summative assessment task at the very end of the taught programme. And we have a series of formative assessment tasks throughout the taught programme that support you in doing that at the end. Another important difference is there are no longer any leadership behaviours in the DfE frameworks for these NPQs. But thankfully, best practice feel the importance of leadership behaviours and skills. And so our own sets are embedded throughout alongside the DfE's Learn That and Learn How To statements in order for you guys to really unpick, as new and emerging or developing leaders, how to apply that new knowledge into your practice as a leader, as opposed to a classroom practitioner. There is also much greater emphasis on practice-based activity and really applying your new knowledge and your new learning within your context, whatever that may be. And that's through practice activities, your in-school performance coach sessions, formative assessment tasks, and other such elements within the programme. A final thing that I just wanted to tell you about the changes really is that the evidence base is really strong on these NPQ programmes, and we now have a whole host of domain-specific and school-specific evidence that's used to underpin the writing of the programmes and all that you will access, as opposed to quite a generic evidence base that was used previously. So in terms of assessment, I touched on the SAT, the summative assessment task, a few moments ago. And I also mentioned, this is, I suppose, a quick reminder because it's something that crops up a lot, there is no longer a school improvement project. It is now a really streamlined assessment. And application of your learning in practice is now the focus of that final assessment. And that follows the 12 months of engagement and learning through that taught programme. And the SAT, the summative assessment task, is an unseen case study scenario. And then your responses to that scenario are around 1,500 words. And those 1,500 words need to be written and submitted within an 8-day summative assessment task window at the end of the 12-month taught period. In order to be entered for that SAT, that summative assessment task, all participants are required to meet at least 90% engagement on the taught programme throughout, across all of those programme elements. So we know that the frameworks are designed for quite specific different interests. And we, as you can see across the top of the slide, we at Best Practice feel that it was really important to write an incredibly inclusive set of programmes that suit really, really diverse needs, particularly on the NPQLBC. We get a lot of participants from really different backgrounds. So I'm going to take you through now just 2 participant case studies, which will just start the conversation about the roles that people arrive at the LBC with, but we'll unpick that in a little bit more detail with Eleanor and Sarah later. So just to start, this is Cath. Cath is taking part in the NPQLBC. She is a highly experienced teacher and leader in schools. Her new role is to lead the work in her large primary team in a really challenging area in the southwest of England as head of culture. The school is experiencing a high number of issues with pupil behaviour, staff consistency, staff turnover. So her goal with the head teacher is that she wants to better understand how to lead with a focus on behaviour and culture, very specifically and culture, as opposed to her previous lenses, such as things like teaching and learning. But she knows that this needs to be closely linked to her school development plan, which is why she's taking part in this programme. This is Ryan. Ryan's also doing the NPQLBC. He works in an all-through pupil referral unit in the Northwest that faces a great deal of very, very highly complex behavioural needs amongst its really small student body. He's got great behaviour management with the students he works with after about 6 years in the profession, but he's now really interested in looking into leadership, as an assistant headship position is looking imminently available, and he wants to be able to develop his behaviour management into a whole setting approach to leading excellent behaviour, and begin to develop a culture and a set of expectations within his setting of excellence before he applies for the role. We've also got participants from earlier settings, HE settings, FE settings, independent schools, international settings. And my point here really is that our participant body is hugely diverse, and everybody is at different points in their teaching and leading careers with completely different school and setting contexts. And the programmes are written to enable all participants to thrive, no matter what background they're from, what context they're from, or whether they're already in a leadership post or aspiring to be in one. So if your role or your phase, your team, your school priority is to develop behaviour and culture or well-being, or behaviours for learning, that's really important, then the NPQLBC could be for you. It's suitable for teachers who have or who are aspiring to have responsibilities for leading behaviour and or supporting pupil well-being in school. So the NPQLBC, just like the LT and the LTD, is based on a series of content areas given to us by the DfE. And within those content areas, there are held a series of learn that and learn how to statements, which you would see as you go throughout the programme. The content areas in the blue oval on the screen have been designed by the DfE, and they appear in the DfE's NPQ frameworks. Tom, this is the point I ask you to put the framework into the chat box, if that's all right, please. Just so everybody's got sight of it, should you wish to. So this slide shows you the content areas across 3 of those specialist programmes and how they compare to the leadership programmes on the right. We've structured all of the programmes to cover all of their content areas, as is a requirement by the DfE. And as you can see, the LBC programme covers 6 of the content areas, offering quite a balance of breadth and depth into the knowledge and the content in how to lead those areas within your setting. As I mentioned earlier, underpinning all of the content areas and all of the content that you will access on programme is a really strong and very clear and robust evidence base and resource list. And we've linked those very specifically to school practice. So you'll see a load of videos, interviews, podcasts, case studies about leaders in the field and how they are demonstrating their knowledge of those statements within their practice at school. And those really are designed to be able to bring to life the statements. What do they mean in practice? So what, how are other people doing this? Bring them alive in your context, in their context, and then to really challenge you guys through various different kinds of activities to start to apply them with relevance to you and your school settings. Just important to note that at every point, participants carry with them something we're calling a leadership development record, and that is a document which tracks your progress, your own golden thread, if you will, ensuring relevance for each of you as individuals. So this group of content areas that we've briefly gone through on the slide has guided the way the programmes have been structured and designed. All of Best Practice Network's specialist MPQ programmes follow these learning stages. As you can see, there's an induction stage, which pretty much speaks for itself, but also offers your first insight into learning, as well as your induction onto programme in terms of the structure and what you'll be doing and who with. Then you move on to the development stage, which appears in 3 cycles. In every cycle, you will have a face-to-face event to kick off the cycle, some online course study and practice activities to unpick your new knowledge from that online study, some formative assessment tasks, again, to go into school and utilise that knowledge, but also to prepare you towards that SAT at the end, the summative assessment task, as well as some in-school performance coaching with a coach that you identify within school upon your application. So within cycle 1, you will follow those 4 elements, then same in cycle 2 and same in cycle 3, but with different content areas as the focus. Following that 12 months, you will then access the summative assessment task, assuming that you have reached the engagement compliance requirement, which you all would, obviously. And that's when you take your SAT in the 8-day window. The slide also just demonstrates the number of hours approximately for all of the specialist programmes, including in NPQLBC specifically. So just a little about best practice, if you don't know us already. BPN is a large professional development provider delivering MPQs and a whole host of other professional development since around 2012. When choosing an MPQ provider, especially like ours, it's really important to consider the values and approaches through which we operate. The whole team, everybody on this call, everybody within our offices, everybody that's out there in the field facilitating or supporting participants, work incredibly hard in all that we do to ensure that we are absolutely inspiring learning constantly, that we are working together and cohesively and collaboratively, that we are consistently striving for excellence, and really importantly, and for me, underpinning all of them, acting with integrity. We are here at the end of the day to get the absolute best leaders for all the children and students we work with, no matter where they are in the country, in the world. So the MPQ work would support you and your professional learning through the programme, and more importantly, ensuring that you're kind of an even better leader when you leave than when you began. So we're really proud to be with you this evening, all of us, to share with you these insights. And I'm going to invite now Eleanor and Sarah to join in a bit of a conversation and to get their perspectives to understand what the NPQLBC means to them, essentially. So, Eleanor, Sarah, welcome. It's really nice to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. Eleanor, can I start with you, please, and just ask you to give us, firstly, a sort of a brief bit of context about your hub and the MPQs and how it works within your hub, and also your top highlights of the LBC from perhaps your hub perspective, but also with your facilitator hat on, so that we really get an essence of what the NPQLBC has meant to you so far.
Absolutely. No, good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. So in terms of my role as a facilitator, we deliver the MPQ through the Auburn Teaching School Hub, which is based in St Albans, and is actually I work at Beaumont in St Albans, then Sandringham, basically the hub is based at Sandringham, and we're part of a consortium. So we have a really close working relationship across not just the 3 schools within our consortium, but across all schools in St Albans and Harpenden and beyond in Hertfordshire as well. You know, the Auburn Teaching School Hub is like they offer the appropriate body services, so they are the go-to for CPD, and the impact that that hub has had across Hertfordshire has been tremendous. You know, for me, in terms of as a facilitator, you know, personally, there I'm incredibly well supported by best practice and the Auburn Teaching School Hub, and you know, regular checkings in, making sure that we have the very best materials and resources to facilitate an extremely high standard of session at all of our face-to-face sessions. For me personally, the highlight is the most valuable aspects of the course is, as Laura said already, everything is evidence-based. And not only, you know, you are able to consult the evidence that's provided for you as a facilitator and obviously encourage participants to reflect on that, but equally you get to hear from so many different settings, you know, primary, secondary, you know, sort of people with PRUs and SEN schools as well. It's been wonderful for me to hear from so many people, but particularly day 3 of the face-to-face events is phenomenal. I remember that one of my colleagues was a participant in the final session. I don't want to say too much to give it away. And then the very next day, I was the facilitator, and we both just came together going, wow, that was brilliant. And it's largely based on people supporting and developing each other. And I think that's why, you know, I have a huge passion for CPD, and I've been lucky enough to be given responsibility for that this year. And I've definitely gained so much from being a facilitator with best practice as well.
Oh, that's fantastic, Eleanor. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate what you said about the day 3. That's really kind of interesting for me to know as well. But also what you said about perspectives and working with people from really different environments and contexts. And actually on the LT and the LTD webinar that we've done this week also, that has been a real highlight of the conversation. So that's really great to hear it's been the same for you. Thank you. Okay, so Sarah, if we can go to you, that would be really great. It would be really nice to know, as a participant of the LBC, what have been your highlights so far?
Hello, thank you for having me on. I think that the main thing that was a highlight for me was being able to, similar to what Elena said, being able to work with different people from different schools. So I actually didn't have any face-to-face events. Mine were all on Zoom. And so we were put into breakout rooms often, and just getting that differentiation of talking to different people and having their points of views and sort of saying to them, I've tried this, but it doesn't work. Have you tried anything similar? What have you guys done? And it's been really helpful to sort of work closely with other participants on the course. And actually some of them we were sharing email addresses so that we could kind of keep each other going, and say, if you were having a moment of thinking, oh goodness, I can't answer one of the facts, for example, then they'd say, oh, have you tried this one? Have you tried that one? So that was a really good way to sort of make that connection between but with people from completely different settings to yourself. So yeah, it was really, really interesting. And having access to the EEF website as well, that is just hours of reading. And I'm not really one that will just sit there and sort of read, but it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. All of the information on there linked really well with all the things we were having to do. So yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's really good to kind of hear that the research, in the same way that Eleanor described it, that the research is really, really working for you as well. And the fact that you are, you know, our name is Best Practice Network for a reason, and you've been sharing best practice, which sounds perfect. It's incredible. So thank you. That's really helpful. Okay, so back to Eleanor, if we can. Would it be possible, Eleanor, from your few different perspectives in terms of your work with us, to share some of the roles or the pathways that participants on the NPQLBC are on in terms of their job roles, their responsibilities, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of the participants have an element of pastoral care to their job. they're either a head of year currently or an aspiring head of year. I think it's very interesting that I meet more and more assistant heads of year. That's certainly, when I was a head of year, that wasn't a thing. Some are assistant heads as well, that perhaps have had a change in responsibility and are looking to expand their knowledge as well. Yeah, and I think, you know, for me, it's everyone I meet has aspirations to continue and, you know, lead in terms of behaviour and culture, and it's been really rewarding for me to be able to support those people on that journey and helping them to understand what success looks like. I think, you know, as a middle leader, sometimes you might feel that you can't impact, you know, at the next level above, but you really can. And I think that's what's brilliant about this particular NPQ, because it gives you the time to plan your ideas, but it also gives you the evidence to support, which ultimately is going to make you successful in implementing change.
Fantastic. Something there about a development in confidence and the ability to lead and the belief in oneself to be able to lead from that middle leader position. And actually, you know, it can often be viewed, can't it, that actually I've got to lead down, I've got to lead up, I've got to lead all the way around. And actually, with the LBC, it's quite unique in that you can have impact very quickly by changing some quite small strategies in terms of behaviour and culture within your setting. That's really, really interesting. Thank you, Eleanor. Okay, so back to you, Sarah, if that's all right. I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit about the most impactful pieces of learning that you've had on the NPQLBC so far.
Yes, so the mentor training that I had, not the training, sorry, the mentor meetings that I had were really good, because it enabled me to sort of talk through any ideas that I had and allowed me to sort of get the go ahead from them. So my mentor was actually the deputy head. So that was really helpful, because it allowed sort of any of my ideas, I'd already got that step up from having SLT involved. So that was a great help. I really enjoyed filling in the LDRs. So again, it really gave me a good insight into the learn this and the learn how to statements. And it just really encouraged me to do some more reading and to look into how these can be applied to everyday practice, and as well as how can it be applied to the behaviour management within the classroom. And from them, it enabled me to have sort of expert-led conversations with other colleagues. So we've got an ECT who's recently started, and she was having quite an issue with her class. So I sort of said, well, why don't we try these different strategies to try and help with the management of the behaviour, really. And she was really grateful, and it just sort of, it made me be able to use what I'd learned and also share it with the other staff members in the school. So yeah, overall it's been really, really successful. So it's working well.
Amazing, Sarah. And it sounds like actually it's the aspects of the programme, the in-school performance coaching sessions within school, and the LDR to identify your own leadership of those statements, that's actually impacted you quite immediately on going and helping that ECT in the classroom, having the new ideas, being able to actually impact immediately within school. And what we're finding is that quite a lot of participants are saying the same thing. Actually, within the first cycle of learning in that development stage that I talked about earlier, they're being able to go, oh, actually, I can help with that. I've got an opinion on this. I've got some new knowledge, and I've got a bit of confidence and a bit of pizzazz about me to talk about this. So yeah, it's really nice to kind of hear it from you that that's what's happening for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Eleanor, back to you if we can. Have there been any commonly arising questions from LBC participants within your hub or within your face-to-face sessions that that would be really supportive to people engaging tonight?
Yeah, I think, you know, as would be expected, you know, initially there's clarification about the process and the formative assessment task, the summative assessment task. But then, you know, through the discussions and through, you know, reflecting on the evidence, a lot of, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, a lot of participants tend to ask about how they can affect change within their setting. And I think that's the beauty. Again, I know I'm calling on lots of previously mentioned ideas, but you know, the fact that Auburn Teaching TSH, as facilitators, we represent different settings. So I've been delivering with a primary deputy head. On another cohort, I've been leading with a deputy head and a PRU. So there's that great wealth of experience that they can call upon, but also, you know, hearing from other settings really helps to create clear ideas about what would and what wouldn't work, you know. And obviously we can coach and support our participants into arriving about a decision. And I always use this example where I remember from our first cohort, a head of year felt that they weren't able to have an impact in terms of behaviour. And I just was able to share, well, this is what I did, and it was just changing some wording in the behaviour policy, and that was success for me. So it's about helping, you know, it's helping our participants to determine criteria that they would judge to be successful. And they're the most kind of questions, or, you know, have you ever dealt with this situation? You know, and that's, again, we're able to call on the experience of the facilitators, but also the experience in the room, because there's a huge range of experience of participants across every cohort. And again, that's what makes it brilliant. And, you know, if anything, it's hard to stick to the timings, because, you know, we could talk, as I'm doing now, we could talk for a long time about ideas that we'd like to implement. So I think that's probably the most common question, is about how to implement change in their setting and what that looks like, and how to break it down into smaller steps.
That's fantastic, thank you. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, the EEF work on implementations is a huge part of that. I really liked what you said about what does success look like, because I think what we've all been working on and continue to work on is making sure that every piece of content, every way we deliver, offers contextualization and relevance to every single individual participant engaging. And the online leadership mentor is the person that will help you do that. Your in-school performance coach is a person that will help you do that. Facilitators, or everybody within the back office teams, even myself as writing lots of the content and leading the program. And we want that relevance for every single person, no matter what that background. So deciphering what success looks like for each participant is crucial. And so I really like that. Thank you, Eleanor. Okay, Sarah, back to you. And I realise we've covered this in part, so see where you go with it. But what sort of impacts has the NPQLBC begun to have on you so far?
Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it's really helped with the ECTs, and there's been other teachers that have sort of said, I've tried this strategy and this strategy. Have you got anything new? Is there anything you've learned through the course that you can help? I have been in talks with senior leaders about possibly revamping our behaviour policy as well, because that's something I'm interested in doing, so that there's a sort of we all sing from the same hymn sheet sort of thing, so that there's standard language that we use throughout the school to make sure that whoever we're dealing with, or whoever's dealing with any child, is always going from the same saying the same thing. So that's something I'm really passionate about. So that's one thing that's in the pipeline at the moment. And I think, yeah, just allowing the other members of staff to know that I'm here if they need me. I'm not saying I'm the fountain of all knowledge now, but it's a lot of people have been teaching for years. I've only been teaching for 5 years, and obviously this is very new, this course. So I've got the upper hand, that I've got some new behavioural strategies that might be able to be implemented throughout the school. And I think, yeah, just in staff meetings saying, don't be afraid to ask for help if you think actually you've exhausted every eventuality and actually you're still stuck. I said, and even not even things major behaviour, just the low level disruption that can easily be nipped in the bud early doors. And if that can be done, then that can make the other teachers' lives a lot easier. So yeah, so I'm just kind of making myself available, but yeah, and still learning as I go as well, because I'm still learning from other teachers, and obviously they're learning from me. So yeah, it's a really good, like you said, the network. It's really helpful to, again, sort of help each other within the same setting.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And what was great, Sarah, is while you were speaking, Eleanor was sort of emphatically nodding, because I think there was a lot that was kind of resonating for her too, particularly around changes to behaviour policy, which I know you mentioned earlier, Eleanor. But yeah, there's just this sort of, I heard when you spoke, Sarah, this "I'm here if you need me," which is innately leadership speak. And what we're finding is with a lot of participants is that they might be starting maybe with a leadership hat on, maybe not, everybody comes from a different perspective, but by the end everyone is operating, behaving and being skilled as a leader, and you can hear that in the way they operate, just as you did. So thank you. I really appreciate your time, both of you. We're just going to take a little bit of time with Jamie now to look at some questions and some points about next steps, and then we'll come back to everybody about question and answers in a minute.
Great, thanks, Laura. So as Laura's just said, in terms of next steps, if you haven't already, the best place to go is straight onto our website, so bestpractice.co.uk or the outstandingleaders.org website. And on there, you'll be able to view all of the program guides, the specifications, and the DfE frameworks. So you can really delve into all of the learn how to statements that are on there, and really kind of delve into the program in a more granular detail. Also on the website, you can start your application process, which takes around 15 to 20 minutes. And at the same time, I'd recommend speaking to your CPD lead or your head teacher, or maybe your line manager about applying, because part of the process will be for us to reach out to them to get their support for you to do the program. So worth starting that sooner rather than later. But as I said, you go onto our website, you can apply straight away. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And the deadline for the February cohort, so starting in the new year, is the 16th of December, which is about 2 weeks in a day's time. So as we say there, sooner is always better than later. Avoid the last minute rush trying to get through, and we'll be able to take it from there. And as Laura's put on the chat there, if you have any questions, do go onto the Q&A box and fire away with your questions, and we're very happy to go through those.
Brilliant, thank you, Jamie. So there are a couple of questions in the chat box, both really helpful. So thank you to Liam and Anonymous. Liam's question is there an expectation that participants have to be at M6 level to join, or could someone with 4 or 5 years experience participate? Straight after Liam wrote that, I think it was when you said, Sarah, I've only been teaching for 5 years, so it was kind of perfect timing. So yes, the eligibility criteria is on our website, and Tom will be able to give you a little bit more information on that in a sec. But you only have to have been in teaching, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, for 2 years minimum. That's it, James giving me the thumbs up. And so no, there is no expectation of what pay level you're at and how long you've been teaching beyond 2 years. So you could be relatively new in your 3rd year of teaching and be aspiring to be a leader. You could be a head teacher and have been leading for years, but want an insight into behaviour and culture in your school. And you could be anything in between those 2 points along that spectrum. Tom, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's bang on. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
open to a wide variety of experience levels, all different phases, as we've heard, and having those different people all come together and share their experiences is hugely valuable, I think.
Thanks, Tom. Jamie, is the best place for them to look about eligibility just on the website? There's an eligibility tab, I believe.
Yes, correct. And it's on our program brochure as well. But if you're ever in any doubt about your eligibility to the program, or about being able to access the scholarship funding, which we've only really touched upon, the best way to do that is to get in contact with us on the inquiries at mailbox, give us a call, or use our online live chat feature.
Brilliant, thank you, Jamie. The second question is a great one. I probably know the answer, but does your behaviour management have to be perfect to do this? Great question. Or can you use it as CPD for yourself? Eleanor, now, before I put my answer in, is there anything you'd like to say on this one?
I would just say no, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Stop. Yeah, because, you know, let's face it, whose behaviour management is perfect or even close to perfect? We've all got great practices, and we've all got practices that we wish we hadn't got and that we're trying to improve. Yes, you can use it as CPD for yourself. What's great about the DfE's statements is that it's about leadership, but it's about the practice within the classroom in order to create that leadership. Now that can sound a little bit woolly when you haven't got the statements in front of you, but it can act as both. So for the person who's asked that question, no, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I hope that doesn't stop you from applying. So I think that's a really great place for you to start. Eleanor, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, you know, even as a facilitator, every face-to-face event I learn something new, and that's, you know, that's the beauty of this qualification, is the fact that you share ideas and you learn. And, you know, a line that I use continuously is the idea that nothing works everywhere, but something works somewhere.
Yes.
And it's only through test and trial and sharing that you get to find out what works for your setting or your classroom.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Eleanor. That's great. Holly, Jamie, I might bring you in here if that's okay. Holly asks, as a non-teacher but pastoral member of staff, I'm double checking I'm able to apply. So there are some eligibility criteria, Jamie, aren't there? Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, so you do need to hold, if you're not a qualified teacher, I'm assuming you're not in this instance, but you may have QTS and then gone into a pastoral route. But assuming you're not a teacher, you need to hold at least a level 5 qualification or higher to be eligible for the programme. There'll also be an extra step because you'll need to apply for a teacher reference number, which is purely an administrative task, and we'll help you through that. So yes, absolutely. If you're not a teacher but have a level 5 qualification, then you'll be able to move forward.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jamie. Holly, I hope that helps. If it helps, Holly, we do have a lot of people who are not teachers on the programme in the way that Jamie's just described. So you wouldn't be on your own. There is a great question here about travel. Really good question. Other than the 3 face-to-face sessions, how much other travelling is required for a non-driver? Quick answer, none other. Slightly longer answer is we always have a backup for those who can't make their in-person face-to-face sessions due to illness, circumstance, things like non-driving, etc. As you heard Sarah say earlier, she had all of her face-to-faces as a virtual through Zoom. So obviously we prefer everybody to get to a face-to-face because there's so much value in that in-person interaction, but actually we offer a great Zoom alternative, and it's just as enjoyable, just as high quality. So I hope that supports that person who's asked that question. Any more questions coming in, Tom, that you can see?
None that I can see. There was one that Jamie picked up about the performance coach. I know Sarah mentioned the importance of her coach. Could you go over maybe how the school performance coach is nominated?
Sure.
Sorry, the
is that the one from Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're talking about the performance coach as opposed to the leadership mentor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So it'd be really interesting actually to get Sarah's perspective here on how she selected her in-school performance coach. But from my perspective of working with lots of different participants, it depends on your school context. It depends on the experiences and the availability of the people within your school. But somebody within your school who can work with you well and can help you develop a sense of autonomy over your leadership, who is trained by us in coaching techniques to be able to offer you 6 different coaching conversations through the period of the 12 months to really help you elicit your understanding and apply it to your in-school situation, whatever that might be. Sarah, is there anything you want to add from your perspective about how you selected your in-school performance coach?
Yeah, so there's 3 of us doing each of the separate courses, and all of us have been given a member of SLT. So the other two were given the assistant heads, and I just happened to get the deputy head. I think because she's quite interested in the behaviour side of things as well. But again, the first sort of few months, it was a learning curve for both of us. So she was being trained through you guys because she was new to it. Obviously, I was learning. So it was kind of a bit like, have you done this? No. Have you done this? Oh, gosh. And so it was kind of like we were kept each other going. But then, yeah, once she had her training and I obviously got into the flow of things, and it kind of made more sense and I knew what I was doing, it worked fine. But I'm not quite sure how. I think because she's not in class all the time, so she has more time to be able to sort of have those conversations and observations and things. I think that's the main reason that she was chosen.
Brilliant, thank you, Sarah. And like I said, you know, every school is different size, works in a different way, has different kind of structure. So it will be down to you guys to decide who the best person is for that, who's got the availability, who might already have existing coaching skills, or at least an interest in behaviour and culture and that side of things. It's also really important to note that whilst you have an in-school performance coach, handily known as the ISPCs, in school, you also have an online leadership mentor that's provided to you through best practice, and they simply are online until the very end when you have an impact review with them. And they support you pastorally, but also by giving you feedback to all of your uploads, all of your tasks, supporting you with all of the online element, so that you've got the online element covered by best practice, and then you've got the in-school application of it supported by your in-school performance coach. Eleanor, is there anything you want to add on any of that part?
No, I know that participants, there's a real noticeable difference from event 1 to 2 in terms of the engagement with their coach and the conversations that they've had. You know, and what I forgot to mention earlier is the progression from event 1 to 3 is huge in terms of confidence, in terms of application. It's huge, and obviously that coach and mentoring role plays a huge part in that as well.
Fantastic, thank you so much, Eleanor, that's great. Tom, anything else you want us to visit in the questions?
A couple more have come through. I think we've got time. Anonymous asks, is it typical for schools to reduce your allocation to complete this?
Do you mean allocation of teaching commitments?
I would think so. Perhaps you could expand on that, Anonymous, and we'll quickly move on to Liam and then come back to you. Liam Dimmock says, I know we had a breakdown of the time needed, but what is the additional workload like for a full-time teacher? It's a good question.
I think the best person to ask is the full-time teacher that's on the call. Sarah, do you want to just share what it's been like for you in terms of that time commitment? And the additional
Absolutely. I have to admit, me and my mentor didn't keep to the one. We have to do 6, didn't we? And it was kind of as and when. So they weren't religiously kept to, but we did do them, but just not in the time frames that we should. You get time out. Well, I got time out from teaching to do the online Zoom courses, and then there is 9 hours of online reading as well afterwards. And again, it's not honor, it's doable. It's not so after schools I would do sort of like a section at a time, just to try and get it, because I also, for me, if I sit there and read reams and reams of stuff, it just doesn't go in. So I was just doing sections at a time, and yeah, it didn't seem like masses of extra work, because being a full-time teacher, you never really stop, I don't think. So it was just an extra little bit to add on. I would suggest though, don't leave the assignments late. If when you get given them after your course, after the online or face-to-face, you might think, oh crikey, that's quite a lot, but it's not. They're quick, they're easy, and the more you kind of just get into it and get involved and do it, the easier it is. So you get given 9 options at first, and you have to pick 3 of them. Well, at first I thought, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. But actually, when you sit down and read them and break them down, they're only about 250 words, I think, each one, or 300, and they're really good, and it really helps to kind of reflect on what you've learned and be able to sort of show your learning in those activities. But no, I wouldn't say it's masses more than what a normal teacher would have anyway. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Thank you, Sarah. No, that does help. That's really good. Thank you. And I think what's really important is when you're doing an e-qualification, obviously there is work attached to that to achieve that and to do the learning that's required. But over and above anything else at Best Practice, we are incredibly mindful of teachers' workload. We have all been in the classroom, we know exactly what it's like, and we do not want to be applying additional workload that's unnecessary. So what Sarah described in terms of these short bits of activity, these small word counts, these short bursts of learning is exactly how it's been designed to be undertaken. So you can fit it in and around work and family life, however it best works for you. We've got some people who do it all weekend. We wouldn't advocate that. We've got some people who do it all evening, every evening. We wouldn't advocate that. It's do it whatever works for you. If you want to do 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there, like Sarah described, do a section at the end of the day at school, then you go home, do all your things at home, and then you do another little bit the next day, etc. And every task that you're asked to do, there's a lot of choice and there's a lot of option, which can feel blinding, but actually they're all very short, and the point is that you've got choice and it's not all of it. So I hope that helps. Okay, so Anonymous has come back with a bit of a clarification, so thank you for that. He said, for example, I teach 42 hours a fortnight. Will they reduce it by 2 or so to ensure you can meet your in-school coach? Obviously, that's up to you and your school and your head teacher to have that conversation about how you want to do it. And we leave that with participants to have the right conversation in their own settings, because everybody is different. Some people do get that allowance, some people don't. And so that's a school conversation, I guess. Tom, Jamie, Eleanor, Sarah, does anybody want to add anything to that in terms of how, in your experience, how schools are allowing for that extra time to be given to the programme?
I think it really depends from my perspective. Obviously, I've spoken to kind of hundreds of people who have gone through and signed on, and I think schools kind of treat it a bit differently. And it's worth, I would probably have the conversation with my head teacher, but it's absolutely not a guarantee as part of this programme.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Jamie. Eleanor, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I would say exactly what has been said already, and to have those conversations, because you never know. If the answer is no, you're still in the same position that you were in. But also, Laura, like you were saying, this qualification is such a fantastic opportunity. It's worth, think of it as an investment in yourself. And I think, as teachers, we're not very good at that sometimes. We put everyone else first. So this is an opportunity for you to do something for you that will impact on your setting as well. So for me, it's worth the investment in terms of time and energy, because the results are fantastic.
Thank you, Eleanor. And with that, it's an investment in the individual participant. It's also an investment for the school, because no matter what that participant comes out with, it impacts on the students and the other members of the staff. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Tom, is there anything you want to add?
I was just going to say, maybe share a recording of this session. I think you guys have shown how incredible this qualification is, and if you show this to your head teacher or line manager, I think you'd get enough buy-in from them that they gave you an extra hour or two to meet with your coach or to spend on the online elements of the program.
It's a great idea, Tom. Thank you. Okay, Anne has asked, really good question, Anne, because we haven't touched on this yet. What's the time commitment of the in-school performance coach? The programme requires 6 hours of in-school performance coaching. Most of those are defined. One is left to however you want to do it, wherever in the programme you want to do it. And the last one is done with the online leadership mentor that's from Best Practice. So it's a kind of a 3-way conversation. So it's 6 hours for that coach. And Alphonse, I think your question is amazing. It's a brilliant question. And what I think we should do is go around everybody on the panel with their top answer for this. So Alphonse has asked, what are the main benefits of the NPQLBC? Right, who am I going to start with? Sarah, what's your main benefit of the NPQLBC from a participant's perspective?
I think probably just being able to learn some new strategies and sort of share them among the other teachers in the school. So just having that knowledge, being able to help the children as well as the adults at the same time. So it's kind of like if a child is distressed or is clearly upset about something, if they've tried and they're sort of like, what else can I do? It's you being able to straight away pull these strategies that I've learned from it to be able to help others, really. So yeah, and just that the knowledge of being able to know more than when I started, if that makes sense. So it's just, yeah, it's just an ongoing thing of being able to help people, but also the children are ultimately benefiting from it as well.
Fantastic, thank you, Sarah. Right, Jamie, what's the top main benefit of the NPQLBC as you see it?
It's quite tough for a 10 to 5 on a Thursday, isn't it? The quiz. I think for me, and if I was undertaking these programs, the various NPQs, for me it's about the network. So it's meeting at the face-to-face days and building your online groups as well. Just really building that network of like-minded people within the education sector who were all interested in developing the same areas. And for me, that would be what I would find most beneficial.
Brilliant, thank you, Jamie. Right, Eleanor, over to you. Tom, this is getting harder and harder as it comes to us because they're taking all the answers. Right, Eleanor, what's your main benefit?
I think echoing what Sarah said, ultimately, to see, ultimately all of this is to prove outcomes for our young people. And by being able to confidently lead behaviour and culture in your school, that's what you're doing. You're improving the outcomes for students because you're maximising that opportunity to learn. But also, I think the sense of achievement for those individuals that complete the qualification as well, for all those many reasons. There's so many demands on our time, but improving outcomes for students and investing in you, like I've said before.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, Tom, beat that. What's your main benefit, Tom, of the LBC as far as you see it?
I mean, that's hard to follow on from. I was going to say the face-to-face events. Those are huge. But I might add the support that you get from us. There's so many different places where you can find support from your tutor, your coach, right through to our back office team, and everyone's just always there. They're really friendly. If ever something isn't clear, if ever you have a change of circumstance, then we're on hand to support you through the program.
Thank you, Tom. Right, over to me. You've all taken all my answers. So I think what I would say is the main benefit is this program is quite unique. The NPQLBC isn't one that's been done before. It's not offered in any other way. And actually the way Best Practice have written it really focuses not only on quite a narrow view of what behaviour management could look like leading in school, but very, very broadly about behaviour and culture, how as a leader you can develop culture and a really great culture with excellent behaviour. So the uniqueness with which we reach leaders and develop them is my top benefit. Okay, thanks, Tom. Over to you.
Brilliant. I think that draws us to a close. That was a really good final question. Yeah, I think that was a nice summary of the key benefits of the programs. Thanks to everyone on our panel who've joined us. Thanks to everyone who attended. Special thanks to Sarah and Elena. As you can see, they've stayed late in school just to share their experiences. I found it hugely valuable. I hope everybody attending did. So yeah, really big thanks to you. Hope you get home soon. And that's it. We'll share the recording. It'll take a few days, ideally on Monday, but we'll share the recording, we'll share the slides. And in the meantime, our website's there and you can contact us through that. Thank you everyone who attended, and thank you to all our panelists.
Thanks everyone, bye.
Okie dokie, I'm gonna shut the webinar. Thanks once more.
Thanks everyone.